Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right into this one. All right. Commissioner Phillips tells FSU and Clemson to hold my beer. Yeah, he came out swinging. We're going to show you that in the ACC media days. He didn't hold back at all. And I can go ahead and tell you the relationship between the ACC, FSU, and Clemson is a lot like this.
You don't talk to me like that. People are scared of me.
Why would anyone be scared of you? I hate you, you big fat turd.
Yeah, they're not getting along at all. Anyway, let's get into what Jim Phillips had to say, because he went right in head first, and it's really the first time he's directly discussed it, and here it is.
To the year ahead, I must directly address the ongoing disputes with two of our members about the contracts they each signed twice and whether they will honor those agreements. With multiple ongoing legal cases, there are limits to what I can say, but I can state that we will fight to protect the ACC and our members for as long as it takes. We are confident in this league and that it will remain a premier conference in college athletics for the long-term future. These disputes continue to be extremely damaging, disruptive, and incredibly harmful to the league, as well as overshadowing our student athletes and the incredible successes taking place on the field and within the conference. People feel passionate about athletics, and they feel particularly passionate about college athletics at their respective schools. This passion is what makes college athletics so special. But this passion can also lead to personal attacks. John Swofford is a decent and honorable man and is widely respected in our industry. He led this conference with a steady hand for over 2 decades and did so through consensus and compromise. The fact is that every member of this conference willingly signed the grant of rights and unanimously, and quite frankly, eagerly agreed to our current television contract and the launch of the ACC network. The ACC, our collective membership and conference office, deserves better. The support for our student athletes, coaches, and programs is extraordinary, and that will continue despite these disruptions. We intend to continue to fight every day for the ACC and its members, and to do so in a way that I hope makes our membership proud. Where there are disagreements or disputes, I intend to continue to deal with them in a respectful and honorable fashion. The ACC deserves nothing less. The ACC will remain a healthy and vibrant conference that competes at the highest level.
All right, you heard that. He is not happy with FSU and Clemson. And a lot of this has to do with money. It also has to do with the college football playoff and what happened to FSU last year, and the fact that the ACC didn't go to bat for them to really speak of. So let's get into the money part first. This is the total money each conference and each team will get. The Big Ten and the SEC are around 75 to 80 million a year per team. Big 12 and ACC are at 53. And here you can see where the SEC and Big Ten get the lion's share of the money for the college football playoff. ACC and Big 12 are about half. The other problem is the ACC is stuck in a TV rights contract that goes on for umpteen years, and they're not going to see the sizable increases that the SEC and Big Ten have already gotten. Why in the world they signed such a long contract makes no sense. And there's a lot, the Swofford guy, supposedly there was nepotism, there was some questions about that, and I think that's what he's talking about there when he brought up his name. But that was way too long to be signing a TV rights contract in college sports. It's too fluctuated, and it's going up too fast. The SEC and Big Ten will have signed another contract way before the end of the ACC contract. And Clemson sees themselves $30 million a year behind every year, and it's only going to get worse. It's going to be $40 or $50 million a year in probably 4 or 5 years as the Big Ten redoes their contract with Fox Sports and the SEC redoes their contract with ESPN. Now, the ACC also has a contract with ESPN, but they are not the precious pup. The SEC is the precious pup. And ESPN will go to bat for the SEC, and you saw that in the college football playoff. A lot of this lawsuit stemmed from FSU getting screwed out of the college football playoff. They had a perfect record of 13-0. 2 teams with 1 loss each got in ahead of them because they lost their quarterback and they didn't look as good at the end of the year, obviously, without him, which is understandable. Well, Greg Sankey went to battle. I mean, he went to war to make sure his teams got in, which was Alabama, which was the big one. He had to get them in front of FSU. And he made sure Texas was in there, even though they weren't in the SEC yet, they were getting ready to be. And when you're in the SEC, you get the protection because, and honestly, when you play the schedule that Alabama and Texas played, it's just much tougher than the ACC. It just is. But when you go undefeated and win every ball game and you don't even have a chance at a national title and you're at a decent conference and FSU is not some small potatoes, you're going to go nuts.
You really suck. This sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before.
And that's exactly what happened. And so the Board of Regents went ahead and voted in favor of suing the ACC shortly after they got creaked out of the college football playoff. It was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but it was stemming from anger. And they were already unhappy about the TV rights deal that they were stuck in. And then you lay the playoff on top of that, and there you are. Now, the weird part of this is the alliance that also, I think, is breeding some resentment. We were supposed to go to a 12-team playoff last year. That was all in the works. It was done. 3 conferences voted against it. They were called the Alliance. The Alliance was the ACC with Jim Phillips, 2 other commissioners. One was Pac-12, which doesn't even exist anymore, and the other one was Big Ten. Petiti was not the commissioner at that time. So they formed the Alliance to vote against the SEC and all the other conferences, but it was primarily to blunt the SEC from getting too much of what they want because they were seen as kind of the bullies and they were just getting too much. They had Texas and Oklahoma coming in, and there was just a kind of a freak out about the SEC, and they kind of lost it. So they formed this alliance. And let me show you this about that formation of this so-called alliance that really didn't have any teeth. But it did cost the entire college football scene the 12-team playoff that we would have had last year, and FSU would, of course, been in that.
A question for you guys just from earlier about there being no signed document. I mean, Jim, you just talked about stabilizing a volatile environment. I mean, what do you say to people who listen to that and think, I've talked to some Big 12 ADs who felt like the Big 12 was as stable as it's been for the last decade. To have no signed document, you have 41 different schools. Obviously, there are some that are going to seem to have more leverage than others who would, to think that there is no signed document, that this alliance isn't very binding at all. How do you ensure people feel like this is actually has some strength where you don't think somebody's going to pull an end run or do something outside the alliance to better their own specific situation?
I'd say this, Bruce. It's about trust. It's about we've looked each other in the eye. We've made an agreement. We have great confidence and faith. Our board chairs have looked each other in the eye and have committed to the same level of support and connection to one another. Our athletics directors have done that. And so if that's what it takes to get something considerable done, then, we've lost our way. Of course, binding contracts serve a purpose. But at this juncture, that to us wasn't a critical element of it. And we'll certainly see where all this goes. But I know what we discussed. We all know what we discussed. And we're very confident about executing on all that's been described today.
You sure about that?
Now, of course, the alliance collapsed. Big Ten went on their way, added teams. And, of course, the Big 12 went in and swiped the rest of the Pac-12 that they could get. So the alliance wound up being nothing but a false promise. And it cost, again, the college football community a 12-team playoff. FSU would have been the 5th spot, which means they would have played at home against the number 12. Now, whether they'd have won that game or not without their quarterback, we don't know. But I promise you, the FSU folks, they'd have been a little ticked about not getting a bye, but getting a home game in the college football playoff, they'd have been thrilled. And we wouldn't be in a lawsuit right now. It might have come later, but this definitely hurried the process. And once you infuriated the FSU fan base and their university like this did, They had to do something. And it even got to the point where the Florida Attorney General got $1 million from the governor in case they needed to sue the college football playoff. It really got ugly, and we covered that. So we were thinking we were going to hear something during SEC Media Days about FSU and Clemson joining possibly the SEC. We'd even heard that from Josh Pate, that he'd heard numerous comments from legal folks that was going to happen. Now, it has not happened yet. It needs to happen before August 15th. Otherwise, the next year, they're still going to be in the ACC. So there's still time for this to happen. But the issue is SEC and Big Ten are afraid to do anything because they get sued by the ACC, and probably rightfully so, because that would be tampering. Going and talking to a university to come to your conference when they're in a TV rights deal, that just could open up a whole can of worms that Sankey and Petitti don't want any part of at this point. Now, if FSU and Clemson get free and they work out a deal the way, for example, Oklahoma and Texas did, or if the ACC were to collapse, then it'd be a free-for-all, and I would think the SEC would pick up both FSU and Clemson. And I don't know if the Big Ten would, because they're not AAU qualified, but I know FSU is working towards that. So there's so many things that could happen right now, and it's getting really ugly. I was wondering when Phillips was going to finally get his back up and really come after FSU and Clemson, and he just did it. I mean, it's on like Donkey Kong.
Okay, all right, we got served. So now, I guess, it's on.
Absolutely. So I fully expect a response from FSU, and I think they're the leader in this. Clemson seems to be kind of following whatever FSU does, and I would expect FSU to combat that in some way, shape, or form, and we'll keep an eye on that. Also, I want to let you know, Connor Stallions has got a special coming out on Netflix.
It's got to be America's Team.
August the 27th. Now, don't get your hopes up. You're going to hear a whole lot, because if he's cooperated with this thing, which I believe he has, you're going to get a very one-sided story.
We're innocent.
And it'll probably be a bunch of crap. But I want to know several things. First of all, was that you on the Central Michigan's sideline? Which, of course, it was. I want to know something about these vacuum cleaners. We need to hear about that. And also, of course, if I was questioning, I'd want to know, did you reach out and help South Carolina because they were playing two teams that could get in your way of making the playoff? Now, this is a guy that sent dozens of people out with smartphones, or at least that's been reported, to record the plays. And he sent somebody to record the plays for Tennessee. They had our plays, as our understanding, and they had Clemson's, is what has been reported allegedly. So that's the first question I'd want to know. But that's me being a Tennessee guy, so, you know, the real story is, how much did you cheat? And I guarantee you Ohio State wants to know that, because they couldn't beat Ohio State at all. They were getting destroyed by them for over a decade, and suddenly Connor Stallions showed up. They went from a 69% winning percentage to a 92% winning percentage, which is amazing. And they beat Ohio State 3 straight times. Anyway, did want to cover this ACC thing and give you a heads up about the Connor Stallions thing. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me know. Continue to cover all these big college sports stories. And if you've not subscribed, boom, 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 hit that little button. It'll help you get my videos. You can keep up with this stuff. And right over here is the most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy based on your viewing history. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.